Good
Thank you, Mr.
afternoon,
Chairman.
Representative.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Very well. Thanks for being here.
Wonderful. I'll try to be very brief. First, I want to thank Chairman Adolph and Chairman Markosik for your time and the members for their trip up to here. And I appreciate the opportunity to share on a line item in the budget that's always been very important to me because of my own personal issues and struggles with Lou Gehrig's disease. I was very pleased to see that this year the funding in the line item was maintained at $350,000, and I wanted to advocate on behalf of that as well as all the other what I'll call disease-specific line items. I think that it's very important that as policymakers we understand the impacts that these diseases have on our ability to deliver social services or other forms of care, perhaps through Medicaid. And I think we need to, for our taxpayers, get the most efficient use out of all the dollars that we have and are entrusted with. In this particular case, I wanted to share some of the highlights, what this line item has been used for, and more importantly, the impact that it's had on the patients' lives, and I think the financial impact that it's had on our budget by saving money. The most immediate and substantial impact has been from the use of the multidisciplinary clinics. That we have those, and we're very fortunate in a state our size to have this many. We have clinics at Pennsylvania Hospital, Hershey Medical Center, Allegheny General Hospital, and the John P. Murtha Neuroscience and Pain Institute. These clinics allow the patients with ALS or the PALS to see multiple, sometimes up to a dozen specialists in a one-stop shop setting. They can come in, they can see a neurologist, a nurse, a social worker, they can see physical and occupational rehab, as well as speech therapists and dietitians. This is all very important for their continuum of care because unfortunately Lou Gehrig's disease, as I've shared before, is always fatal, mostly within 2 to 5 years. But more importantly, from our perspective as policymakers, it can also be extremely costly to us as the Commonwealth because once individuals utilize all of their own assets and become eligible for public assistance, this kind of care can sometimes cost tens of thousands of dollars per year, sometimes particularly near the end and in very clinically intensive sites. It's not unusual to see bills upwards of $70,000, $80,000 per year to care for these individuals and the complications that are associated with their disease. Unfortunately, we have approximately 1,000 patients in the Commonwealth who are suffering from ALS. If you remember back when I first started testifying about this disease, we had approximately 850 to 900. So we've seen a steady increase in the rate of the disease, as well as some advances in the treatment that I mentioned earlier. I think the next most important impact that this line item has had has not just been the multidisciplinary clinics, but in the ability to keep these patients in their home setting to provide the care. There's been roughly 12,000 hours of in-home health care given to people with ALS, and this line item has actually helped to assist with about a quarter of that entire total that is being offered. This level of specialized care, as I mentioned, is not cheap. And as policymakers, I think we always need to be on the lookout for the most efficient use of our money. I would certainly advocate that caring for individuals in a home setting is much more cost effective as well as more comforting to the patients in order to allow them to be in that setting. So I would certainly view that as a win-win for every party involved. The impact from this line item, I would argue, has been great, but unfortunately the need is even greater. As we've seen the steady growth in patients as well as medical advances, there are other areas I think that we could be looking towards, whether it be adaptive technology to be utilized in the home. I shared an article with the committee regarding the use of the Google Glass technology, which I think has been fabulous. I've had the privilege of touring some of the clinics and seeing the computers that can be controlled with eye movement. And while we're making great advances to keep people at home longer, they are also living longer, so the costs are also increasing. As policymakers, I think we have a great balance that we need to strike. We need to have an effective use of our dollars, an efficient use of our dollars. And I would argue that we need to make the best use of those, and certainly why I'm here advocating on behalf of not just that line item for Lou Gehrig's disease, but all the disease-specific line items, because all of these diseases have a very real impact on our constituents' lives, and in addition to that, it has a very real financial impact on our budget as we consider these items as we move forward. And in the scope of our budget, I think that this is a $350,000 investment that I would love to see increased at some point in the future when financially able. I'd love to see it perhaps go up to $500,000, and that would be $500 per patient roughly. And I think that we could provide a even better standard of care here in the Commonwealth, because one of the things that I see on the horizon, and I've mentioned, I believe, every time that I've testified on this disease, is that veterans are twice as likely to succumb to Lou Gehrig's disease or be diagnosed with it from a statistical standpoint as compared to the average population. And as many of you know, we have many brave men and women serving in the military, currently on the War on Terror, and we are the single state with the largest deployment of National Guardsmen over the course of the War on Terror. So that means as these veterans are returning home, I think it's even more important that we have the infrastructure and the pieces in place to care for them and assist them everywhere that they need, so that we have continued success with our great medical clinics in the Commonwealth. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your support, and I look forward to working with you as we go forward. Thank you.
Likewise, Representative, thank you very much.
Thank you.